Did Rick Ross actually flop, or are we all just witnessing the death of the album era? Rick Ross just released a 19-track album. Features from Jeezy, T.I., Gucci Mane, Kodak Black, Big X the Plug, Leon Thomas. On paper, that's the kind of lineup that should have had hip-hop paying attention. Instead, the conversation immediately became, yo, how bad did it sell? The internet chatter started, 50 Cent couldn't wait to pile on, Drake fans pointed to the feud, and before most people even had a chance to press play, the internet had already decided Rick Ross flopped. But here's what's crazy. The more I looked into the numbers, the less I was convinced that Rick Ross himself is the actual story. Because if the album era is changing, Rick Ross might simply be the latest artist exposing it. If that's true, then this conversation isn't really about Rick Ross. It's about how we measure success in hip-hop in 2026. Because the first week number everybody keeps quoting doesn't tell the whole story. Let's get into it. Meet me on the other side. I am Broadway, the lyricist, homie, just let me do my thing. Let's start with what we actually know. According to the latest reported projections, Set in Stone finished the first week with approximately 17,189 album equivalent units. That's expected to land around number 45 on the Billboard 200. Now, before anybody starts screaming, only 17,000? Let's clear something up. People online keep saying Rick Ross sold 2,000 copies. Those aren't the same thing. Album equivalent units combine traditional album purchases, individual song downloads, and streaming activity. So when somebody says he only sold 2,000, they're actually talking about pure album sales, not the number that Billboard actually uses to rank albums. That distinction does matter, because early tracking numbers painted an even uglier picture. Opening day Spotify estimates reportedly hovered around 1.4 to 1.8 million streams, and social media immediately declared that album dead. By the end of the tracking week, the reported total settled around 17,189 units. Now, is that disappointing? Absolutely. But disappointing and catastrophic aren't necessarily the same thing. The real question isn't whether 17,000 is low. It's low compared to what? Whenever artists struggle, people immediately compare them to Drake or Kendrick or Travis Scott. I don't think that's fair. If we're judging Rick Ross, the comparison shouldn't be Drake. It should be Rick Ross. Back in 2019, Port of Miami 2 opened with approximately 80,000 first week units. Then in 2021, Richer Than I Ever Been reportedly debuted around 34,000. Now, Set in Stone, approximately 17,000. Think about that projection. 80, 34, 17. That's nearly an 80% decline from Port of Miami 2, and roughly a 50% drop from his previous solo album. That's not a Drake comparison. That's a Rick Ross comparison. And honestly, that's where the conversation should begin. Because regardless of how you feel about the music, those numbers tell us this isn't just one bad week. It's part of a trend. Because once I started looking beyond Rick Ross, I realized he isn't the only artist facing this reality. Here's something that surprised me. Streaming isn't down. In fact, it's growing. Americans streamed roughly 1.4 trillion songs last year. Worldwide, that number climbs past 5.1 trillion. So people are absolutely listening to music, maybe more than ever. But here's the catch. They're not necessarily listening to new albums. More and more listeners spend their time replaying music that they already love. Go look at your own playlist. How much of it actually came out this year? Exactly. And this isn't just a feeling. The same company that powers the Billboard charts, Luminate, found that in 2025, less than half of everything Americans stream came from music released in the last 5 years. Less than half. Think about what that means. The majority of what this entire country listened to was older music, catalog, the stuff we already know. That creates a problem for veteran artists. Fans still love Rick Ross. They'll play BMF, Hustlin', Aston Martin Music, Freemason, John. But does that automatically mean they're gonna sit down with a brand new 19-track album? Not necessarily. That's a very different question. And here's where it stops being a theory and starts being a pattern. Because I want you to look at who Rick Ross lost to that same week. Tory Lanez, a brand new project that moved around 19,000 units, roughly the same range as Ross. Now sit with that for a minute. Tory Lanez put up those numbers from behind bars, incarcerated. No promo run, no interviews, no late night stage, no press tour. And he landed in the same neighborhood as the Maybach music legend, with a 19-track album and a guest list full of stars. Let that sink in. Because if a certified legend and an incarcerated artist with zero promotion are pulling nearly identical first week numbers, then maybe that number isn't telling you who failed. Maybe that number is telling you the whole tier just flattened. The ceiling didn't only drop for Rick Ross. It dropped for almost everybody who isn't sitting at the very top of the game. So maybe Rick Ross isn't simply losing fans. Maybe fans simply consume music differently now. So if streaming is growing and the numbers are low across the board, why do so many people immediately attribute that to Drake? Let's be fair, Rick Ross and Drake weren't just collaborators. They helped define an era together. Some of Ross's biggest records feature Drake. Then everything changed. The Kendrick battle happened, Ross sided against Drake, the friendship fell apart, shots were exchanged. Drake even suggested that he helped Ross generate streams over the years. So when Set in Stone reportedly debuted with disappointing numbers, people connected the dots. I get it, it's a compelling narrative. But here's the problem. A compelling narrative isn't proof. There's no evidence Drake fans organized some massive boycott. There's no evidence that Drake personally tanked this album. What the feud did do was create expectations. If Ross had sold 80,000, people probably would have laughed at Drake. When he didn't, they laughed at Ross. That's the nature of internet culture. Everything becomes a scoreboard. And once them jokes started, there was one person you knew wasn't gonna miss the opportunity. This part should surprise absolutely nobody. 50 Cent and Rick Ross have been taking shots at each other for well over a decade. The moment those early predictions hit social media, 50 jumped all over them. The 2,000 copies jokes, the trolling, everything what you'd expect. But 50 didn't create that narrative. He amplified it. By the time casual fans heard about Set in Stone, they weren't hearing that Rick Ross dropped a new album. They were hearing that Rick Ross flopped. Now think about how dangerous that is. When the performance becomes more famous than the music, people stop judging the art. They judge the headlines. And social media has gotten really good at turning projections into verdicts. Which brings us back to the original question. Did Rick Ross actually flop? Or are we measuring success with a broken ruler? So did Rick Ross flop? By his own historical standard, I'd say yes. 17,000 reported first week units is a significant drop from where he once was. But here's where I think people are getting it wrong. Rick Ross isn't the only veteran artist seeing numbers trend downward. Streaming isn't collapsing, hip-hop isn't dying, people are still listening to music. They're just listening differently. They're spending more time with catalogs, they're spreading their attention across more artists, and they're no longer treating every release from a legendary rapper like a cultural event. That's a much bigger conversation than Drake. It's bigger than 50 Cent, it's even bigger than Rick Ross. Because if this continues, the question won't be, why did Rick Ross only sell 17,000? The question will become, how should we judge success for legacy artists in a streaming first world? Maybe 17,000 is disappointing. Maybe the Drake feud didn't help. Maybe 50 Cent made the jokes louder. All of those things can be true, but it didn't explain everything. I think Set in Stone is exposing something that's been happening for years, and we're just finally paying attention because Rick Ross is the one currently under the spotlight. But now, I want to hear from you. Did Set in Stone actually flop? Or are we just watching the slow death of the album era? Let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new content. And if you want more videos just like these, be sure to click here to see more. I'm Broadway the Lyricist, and these are the hip-hop conversations we should be having. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate y'all. Peace.